The night before John D. Rockefeller signed the deal that would make him the wealthiest human being in recorded history, he went to bed at 9:30 p.m., the night before Andrew Carnegie finalized the sale of his steel empire for what is still, adjusted for inflation, the largest private business deal in American history. He read poetry, and the night before Elon Musk sent the first privately funded rocket into orbit, an event that every aerospace expert on Earth said was impossible, he sat alone in a parking lot and cried. What do the nights before world-changing moments have in common? Not hustle, not grind, not 18-hour days, something else entirely, something that productivity gurus will never put in a course. Something that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the most important thing the world's greatest builders ever did happened in the dark, before anyone was watching. The lie we've all been sold. Here's what we've been told. Billionaires are superhuman. They sleep less. They work more. They sacrificed everything. Relationships, health, sleep on the altar of ambition. And if you want what they have, you need to do the same. Sleep is for people with no goals. We've turned suffering into a status symbol. But here's what nobody tells you. Rockefeller slept 9 hours a night for most of his adult life and lived to 97. Carnegie famously wrote in his autobiography that his greatest regret was working too hard in his 20s, and he restructured his entire life to prevent it from continuing. And Elon Musk, the man synonymous with extreme work, has publicly admitted that his worst business decisions came during the periods when he was sleeping the least. So what's actually happening on the nights before everything changes? What is the real ritual, the real mental state that precedes a world-altering move? That's what this video is about, and we're going to go through it case by case. 3 men, 3 moments, 3 nights. Let's start at the very beginning of American capitalism. John D. Rockefeller, the night before Standard Oil. The year is 1870. John D. Rockefeller is 31 years old. He is not yet famous. He is not yet the richest man alive. He is a refinery owner in Cleveland, Ohio, one of dozens, watching the oil industry tear itself apart in a chaotic, cutthroat race to the bottom. Prices were collapsing. Competitors were destroying each other. Railroads were playing refinery owners against one another. The whole industry was, in Rockefeller's own word, chaos. Standard Oil is incorporated. What did Rockefeller do that night? His biographer Ron Chernow, who spent years reconstructing Rockefeller's private life through letters and journals, describes a man who was almost eerie in his calm. Rockefeller had a ritual. Every night, regardless of what was happening the next day, he would review his ledger books. Not to stress, not to plan, but what he called accounting for the day. He tracked every penny he spent, every penny he earned, every decision he made, and whether it matched his values. This wasn't bookkeeping. This was something closer to a confessional. He was, at his core, a deeply religious man, a Baptist who genuinely believed that wealth was a stewardship given by God. And every night, he would ask himself the same question: have I been faithful with what I was given today? And here is why that matters. When Rockefeller sat down the next morning and signed the papers incorporating Standard Oil, he wasn't operating from ambition or greed or fear. He was operating from clarity. He had processed the day. He had aligned his actions with his values. He had essentially made peace with whatever was about to happen. Psychologists have a name for what Rockefeller was doing, though they wouldn't study it for another 100 years. They call it cognitive closure, the mind's need to reach a definitive conclusion before it can fully commit to the next move. Rockefeller closed his loop every night, which is why every morning he could open a new one with total focus. Over the next decade, Standard Oil would control 90% of America's oil refining capacity. Rockefeller would become, by some calculations, the wealthiest private individual in human history. And every single night of that journey, he balanced his ledger. He didn't grind harder than everyone else. He cleared harder than everyone else. Remember that. Andrew Carnegie, the night before the steel deal. Now we move forward 30 years, and we move to a man who is, in almost every way, the opposite of Rockefeller. Where Rockefeller was quiet, Carnegie was loud. Where Rockefeller was disciplined, Carnegie was passionate. Where Rockefeller controlled himself, Carnegie controlled rooms. Andrew Carnegie arrived in America from Scotland as a child, dirt poor, working in a bobbin factory for $1.20 a week. By the 1890s, he would be producing more steel than all of Great Britain combined. December 1900, Carnegie is 65. J.P. Morgan wants to buy everything. The banker J.P. Morgan, arguably the most powerful financier in American history, had been quietly assembling a plan to consolidate the entire American steel industry. He needed Carnegie's company to make it work, and Carnegie knew it. For weeks, Carnegie had been doing what he always did when faced with a massive decision. He disappeared. Not metaphorically, literally. He retreated to Skibo Castle, his private estate in Scotland, and he read. He walked. He played golf. He refused to discuss business. The people around him thought he was stalling. They thought he was nervous. Some thought he was losing his edge. He wasn't. Carnegie had a philosophy he developed over 40 years of business. He called it the deliberate pause. Before any decision that would change the direction of his life, Carnegie would deliberately create distance from the pressure. He believed, and this is documented in his own writings, that the mind makes its worst decisions when it is reactive, when it is responding to urgency and fear. The best decisions, he wrote, are made from what he called the observatory, the high place where you can see everything, including yourself. So that December, while Morgan's bankers were sweating and waiting, Carnegie was walking the Scottish moors and reading Robbie Burns. And on the night before he finally agreed to meet with Morgan's representative, a young man named Charles Schwab, Carnegie reportedly spent the evening writing, not contracts, not strategy memos, letters to his friends. Long, warm, personal letters about philosophy and poetry and what he hoped his legacy would be. Because here's what Carnegie had already decided. He wasn't selling to Morgan because of money. He already had more money than he could ever spend. He was selling because he had a second vision, a second life. He wanted to give away every dollar he had before he died. He had read Herbert Spencer. He had absorbed the idea that inherited wealth was a curse. He wanted to fund libraries and universities and music halls and peace organizations. He couldn't do that while running a steel empire. The sale wasn't an ending, it was a launch. He doesn't, and Morgan finalized the deal and shook Carnegie's hand. He reportedly said, "Congratulations, Mr. Carnegie. You are now the richest man in the world." Carnegie smiled and said, "I was worried I would be." The night before the biggest business deal in American history, Andrew Carnegie was writing letters about poetry because he had already done the real work. He had decided who he was. The numbers were just paperwork. Elon Musk, the night before the Falcon. Now we come to the moment I mentioned in the first 10 seconds of this video, the one that surprised me most when I researched it. The year is 2008, and Elon Musk is in the worst position of his life. Tesla is nearly bankrupt. The financial crisis is destroying his investors' confidence, and SpaceX, the private rocket company he founded on the belief that humanity must become multiplanetary, has just failed its third consecutive launch attempt. 3 rockets, 3 failures. Hundreds of millions of dollars gone. The employees are demoralized. The press has written SpaceX's obituary, and Musk, who has poured his entire PayPal fortune into both Tesla and SpaceX simultaneously, is almost out of money. One more failure and it's over. They have 1 rocket left. On the night before the 4th Falcon 1 launch attempt, the one that had to succeed or SpaceX would cease to exist, Musk didn't call an all-hands meeting. He didn't give a speech. According to multiple employees who were present and have since spoken about that night in interviews, Musk walked out to the parking lot of the SpaceX facility in Hawthorne, California, sat on the hood of his car, and cried. Not for long, but he cried. And then he did something nobody expected. He went back inside and told his team, "I've made peace with failure. Now, let's make sure we don't." There's a concept in psychology called defensive pessimism. It's different from regular pessimism. Defensive pessimists don't believe things will go badly. They pre-experience the worst outcome emotionally, so they are no longer afraid of it. By grieving the potential loss before it happened, Musk freed himself from the paralysis of fear. He'd already felt the bottom. There was nothing left to be scared of. The next day, September 28th, 2008, Falcon 1 launched. And for the first time in history, history. A privately funded liquid-fueled rocket reached orbit. The employees erupted. People were weeping. Years of work, years of failure, years of being told it was impossible, all of it collapsing into one moment. Musk stood in the middle of the crowd and could barely speak. He later said in an interview that the night before was when he actually won. Not the launch day, the night before. I made my peace. After that, I was just watching. 3 men, 3 centuries, 3 completely different industries, personalities, and approaches to life. But on the night before everything changed, they all did the same thing. They stopped. Not to rest, not because they were tired. They stopped with intention. Rockefeller closed his ledger and made peace with the day. Carnegie walked the highlands and made peace with his identity. Musk sat in a parking lot and made peace with failure. The pattern isn't about routine. It isn't about sleep hygiene or morning habits or cold showers. It's about resolution. Every single one of these men, before the moment that changed history, had resolved something internally. They had answered the question that most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. Who am I if this doesn't work? Rockefeller knew, I am a faithful steward. Carnegie knew, I am a man with a mission beyond money. Musk knew, I am someone who tried everything, and that is enough. That resolution, that inner peace, is what allowed them to show up the next morning without hesitation, without second guessing, without flinching. The world calls it confidence, but it's not confidence, it's completion. They weren't brave because they weren't scared. They were free because they'd already processed the fear. The night before you change your world might not look like a grand strategy session. It might look like a walk, a journal entry, a good cry in a parking lot, but it will feel like something finishing inside you. And when that happens, you're ready. If this video made you think differently about how the world's great builders actually operate, not the myth, but the reality, then I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what do you do the night before a big moment? A job interview, a launch, a conversation you've been putting off? What's your ritual? And if you want more videos like this, stories behind the stories, the hidden psychology of the people who shaped the world, make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell. We go deep here. No fluff, no shortcuts.